Well, good afternoon and welcome to Seattle's Eastside Real Estate Podcast, your go-to source for all things living, working, and playing on the East Side. Today is Wednesday, May 3rd, and we are live on Facebook and YouTube. Feel free to like, comment, and share our feed. I hope you find this interesting. If you are listening to a recorded version, please review our podcast and subscribe on YouTube. We're also on Google Podcasts and Spotify, I believe, many others. Today, we're going to bring in Tucker Maxwell with Guild Mortgage Company, and we're also going to be talking with Carly Hull of Mason Staging. But before, and actually, I lied, I'm going to actually bring in Tucker Maxwell here for our Real Talk segment. So good afternoon, Tucker. How you doing?
Great, Dan. How are you today?
I'm doing great. So we had some phenomenal weather, stuff that we've earned here in the Northwest when you put up with all the rain that we get. Every now and then we get days like Saturday. So I want to hear what was your Saturday all about?
You know, Dan, I was planning to climb some mountains, but the avalanche risk canceled that because it was so nice and it heated up so quickly. Avalanche risk was crazy, off the charts.
Where
So
were you going?
I was going to do Putrid's Peak. So up by 90, kind of in
Yeah.
the 990 corridor.
Isn't there like a ledge that you can hike to and then you go up to the peak from there, right?
Yep, exactly. And
But
yeah,
too much snow and then too much heat makes for not a good thing.
exactly. So I dusted off the mountain bike and went mountain biking closer to town.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, that's great. Obviously, if you are thinking of relocating to the area and you're watching this show, there is tons of amazing stuff like that to do. If you like hiking, I myself was on the Puget Sound, circling the Cypress Island, which is northwest of Anacortes, and hooked my first fish ever. So that was cool.
Nice.
I
Very
made
cool.
some fish tacos.
I saw your
Um,
videos. Beautiful.
yeah, it was a super great day for that. So, all right, well, let's talk about three factors that are affecting affordability today. Lots of talk about higher mortgage rates and how they're creating affordability challenges for many of our home buyers. And it's true that rates have climbed dramatically, but here's the key point: since record lows, right? So we had record low interest rates. So it's almost like, you didn't know how good you had it. And that's very true. But one of the things I always look back at historical numbers and watching the productivity that happened in 2020 and 2021. That was due to these record low interest rates and a desire to be somewhere. So now, even though those factors, have changed, it's not just interest rates that mortgages that affordability is based on. It's a consideration of things. But let's start with mortgage rates. So give me some perspective on where mortgage rates are now compared to where they were last year at this time, and then maybe even fourth quarter last year, and where you think they're going.
Yep. Yeah. So the key date last year was right around June. I want to say June 3rd or June 4th, right there. The beginning of June was when we saw rates spike. So right here in the April, May timeframe, rates were still sweet. They were still in the threes, maybe fours at this point last year, and only had begun to start to climb. Where we are today is about double that. A client with excellent credit could probably assume high fives and into the sixes right now.
Okay, so high fives are still possible.
Yeah, absolutely.
Wow, that's awesome. So basically, we had a lot of volatility from like June until, I don't know, November-ish. Does that sound right?
Yep, exactly.
And then they started ticking down since then and kind of have stabilized to where they're at now. So, of course, that's not the only thing that affects affordability. Then also there's the home price. And, while we have seen these record low interest rates and high demand, the reduction in demand in some places across the country have actually brought down, not down the prices, but slowed the appreciation of prices. And in some cases, maybe it is lowering prices. The biggest challenge about home prices falling and gaining, and I think this is the big misconception out there in the marketplace, is interest rates went up, home prices are dropping. It's actually true and not true. So to say home prices are dropping, yeah, home prices are dropping over this incredible high that we had, where in March of 2022, we were seeing escalation amounts somewhere between 7 and 13% above asking price. So now we're actually maybe in some good cases here on the east side, we're still seeing escalations. However, agents have been smart. They've looked at the rear view mirror and said, well, we can't demand the prices of last year or more than last year, but we can start a little lower. And because demand happens, there's still a higher price. But it is true that this is going to be a very case by case basis. I couldn't even tell you from Sammamish to Issaquah to Redmond to Bothell to Newcastle to Renton how different it will be. What's the price range? Some price ranges are taking longer to sell, others are quickly. So it really does depend. But the truth is that because there are higher interest rates, it has taken a few buyers off the market. But will you agree with me, Tucker? There's still some multiple offer situations.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. On a well-priced home, for sure. I think where you're not seeing the multiple offer situations where maybe a seller gets a little overzealous, wants to beat out a neighbor, and is a little more passionate about their home and they price it a little higher, then maybe you don't see as quite. But yeah, we're dealing with multiple offer situations just like we were before, just lower escalations. People aren't going six figures over list price, but still having to go, 5% or so over list.
Yeah, I think, and I think the importance of that is having a good, solid pre-approval letter, which is kind of speak to that. What do you guys do to encourage your potential borrowers to be prepared for the market that may be competitive?
Yeah, so you nailed it. Pre-approval is ultimately key because you have to, one, understand your numbers. And the only way for a lender to give you concrete loan approximations is to fully understand the risk that you present to the bank so we can estimate an accurate interest rate and accurate payment. And most importantly, your cash to close, which is a combination of your down payment plus closing costs. So you know how much out of pocket you will need to bring in to buy the home and how you then can use that information to work with your agent to strategize on how you're going to handle the appraisal, right? If we're escalating over list price, there's the potential of a low appraisal. What does that mean for the buyer? Do we need to bring in additional funds to cover that gap? Do we have those additional funds available or do we not? And so really understanding your numbers through the pre-approval process will give you the ability to know how much money is left over and how to handle the appraisal. And then on top of that, gives you the confidence to waive financing if you need to. You have a lender that's backed that decision, has checked you off as a buyer and says you're good to go, so that you have that confidence to be able to potentially waive financing without just completely shooting in the dark there.
Awesome. So when push comes to shove, the more preparation you do on the lending side, the more you will have the opportunity to be in the best possible position to get a house that you're looking for. And that's that's the bottom line on that. Lastly, the third point on affordability is despite the amount of unemployment that we're seeing, which is actually kind of slid back to record lows in some sectors. I know we're hearing a lot of stuff about layoffs, but what are you hearing from a standpoint of qualification standards? Meaning, in the area here in Bellevue, our median home price is $1.5 million. So, the individuals that are qualifying for that generally have pretty good salary to start with. Am I correct in that?
Absolutely. Yeah. Very, very few buyers even anywhere near the area median incomes for most of our borrowers.
Yeah. Yeah. So that the truth of the matter is that we have a well-employed population, but there's all this layoffs. So who's getting laid off? Where are they going? And what are they doing? And we still have a lot of buyers. So where's the movement on earnings for people?
Yeah, so it's an interesting point. And a lot of the layoffs we're seeing are in the tech sector, which is specific to the East Side. We have an enormous tech sector here on the East Side. I think one thing going for us is the space companies, SpaceX, Blue Origin, some of those companies, specifically Redmond. I think they're starting to call it Space City. it's doing very well and they're hiring. And so if these folks are leaving Google, Microsoft, or one of those traditional tech companies, there are other jobs available in these other fields, also biotechnology, that are willing to hire these. So from a qualification standpoint, there is the risk of layoffs, but there are still jobs available for those people. And then the second thing that we see is we have a lot of dual income households in this area. It's very common for both, both partners to have good income. And at the incomes we just talked about, they can almost always qualify for the home with just one of their incomes. So while there's the risk of layoff, the likelihood of them both being laid off is fairly low. And so most of the buyers are saying, yeah, maybe we won't stretch to 1.8, but we're still willing to go to 1.2 because one of us can carry that payment, no problem.
Something occurred to me as you talked me through that, is I know specifically engineers, programmers, engineers, that whole kind of tech sector that you think of, people that work for Microsoft. Well, I've had people that work for T-Mobile, so that's cellular, and I've seen them go to Amazon, right? And then, which is retail goods and online store and all that, a lot of different things. And then going over to, say, Google, right? And I didn't even think about aerospace, i.e. outer space.
Yeah.
But somebody with that skill set, if they get laid off from Amazon, boom, it's going to go right over to one of these other industries that are diverse. So, I mean, that is kind of the hallmark of what makes the East Side such a desirable place for people to live, is there is that diversity of, if you're good at what you do and one industry or type of industry has scale backs or cutbacks, you can easily pivot and go over to other ones. I didn't even think about that. So that's a great point. Well, listen, I combined our real talk and our mortgage moment into a real mortgage moment. Ooh, that could be like a new segment. And so I know you have some stuff on loan level price adjustments, and let's save that topic for next week. So Tucker, if people are looking to get approved to take advantage of this market, here's the thing is, this may not be that market where you're like, hurry up and get in, but it is a market that if you're looking to not pay somebody else's mortgage, there's plenty available. So how do people get a hold of you, Tucker?
Yep, I'm on Facebook, LinkedIn. So just search Tucker Maxwell with Guild Mortgage, and you can find me on all the platforms.
Okay. Or on top of a mountain.
Yep, happy to find you there.
All right. Tucker, thanks for coming on.
Absolutely. Thanks, Dan.
All right, we're going to have a short commercial break. After that break, we're going to be welcoming one of our stagers, Carly Hall with Mason Staging. Come back after this short commercial break.